Nobody could have predicted the chaos that broke out at the much-anticipated Love and Hip Hop reunion. What was supposed to be a glamorous celebration and closure swiftly turned into an explosive disaster that left fans stunned and cast members reeling. The drama between Yandhi and Rashida was supposed to be the main focus, but nobody anticipated that Mendices would end up in the middle of a violent storm that ended with handcuffs and flashing police lights. Emotions ran high, tempers flared, and what began as a heated argument between old friends turned into a full-scale brawl that shocked everyone on set. Security failed to intervene quickly enough, leading to a dire situation that no one could undo. As fans watched the cast live on social media, rumors began to circulate, and soon the headlines confirmed that the unthinkable had happened. Mendices was arrested for allegedly assaulting Rashida during the reunion taping. How did things go? So quickly? What caused this shocking moment? What does it mean for the future of love and hip-hop? Stay tuned because you won't believe what transpired behind those closed doors. Fans had been waiting months for this moment to finally see their favorite stars reunite and work out all the drama that had been simmering behind the scenes. But no one could have predicted how quickly things would get out of control. From the moment Yandhi and Rashida locked eyes, there was a tension that made everyone in the room shift uncomfortably. Rumors began to circulate that old wounds were about to be reopened, and even the producers couldn't have predicted how badly it would end. Rashida, trying to remain composed, sat rigidly on the couch while Yandhi made a point of sitting right across from her, with her arms folded and her eyes narrowed. It didn't take long for the petty jabs to start coming. Yandhi accused Rashida of talking behind her back and of betraying their so-called sisterhood for fame and followers. Rashida responded with equal vigor, hurling accusations of manipulation and phony friendships into the air. The audience gasped, and the reunion host made a valiant attempt to refocus the conversation, but it was too late. Mendices, who had been sitting off to the side, immediately grew tense. He detested seeing Yandhi in any kind of distress, especially in public, and everyone knew that he had a short fuse when it came to protecting his family. At first, he remained seated, his jaw clenched, his fists tightening on his lap. But when Rashida got up and stepped toward Yandhi, pointing a finger in her face and raising her voice, something inside Mendices snapped. Fans who were live streaming the event captured the exact moment he got up. His face twisted in anger, and witnesses described how quickly everything happened. When the host yelled for Rashida to back off, she turned to face him and refused to back down. Words were exchanged loud enough to drown out the host's desperate pleas for calm. And then, in a flash, Mendices allegedly shoved Rashida so hard that she stumbled backward. The entire set went into chaos, with some cast members rushing forward to pull Mendices away, while others attempted to assist the stunned and enraged Rashida. Security eventually managed to swarm the stage, separating everyone as accusations and screaming filled the air. Yandhi showed signs of shaking, though the reunion, which had been planned as the season's biggest event, was officially over. The drama was far from over. Within minutes, police arrived on set, lights flashing, radios crackling, and fans outside the studio. Rashida, meanwhile, demanded that the police be called immediately, shouting that she wasn't going to be swept under the rug. Backstage, tempers continued to flare as friends and family members of both sides began arguing, some even coming to blows themselves. Others started filming as uniformed officers pushed through the crowds to enter Mendices' now slightly calmer but still tense area. According to reports, he first attempted to explain the situation, claiming that he had only acted to defend Yandhi and that things had gotten out of hand. But with Rashida pressing charges on the spot and multiple witnesses supporting her version of events, the officers had little choice. Handcuffs were placed on Mendices' wrists as cameras captured every tragic moment. He could be heard sobbing as he pleaded with the officers to reconsider. Emotions ran high as innumerable live streams, tweets, and Instagram stories examined every aspect of the explosive altercation. Meanwhile, fans, celebrities, and industry insiders all responded with hashtags like Justice for Rashida and Tower Free Mendices, which trended within hours. Some fans expressed outrage at Mendices' actions, calling for him to be banned from the show and even face serious jail time, while others fiercely defended him, arguing that he was only trying to protect Yandhi and that the situation had been blown out of proportion. With her face still red with emotion, Rashida went live from her dressing room just hours after the incident to tell her side of the story to thousands of fans watching in real time. She insisted that she had never threatened Yandi physically and accused Mendices of overreacting and assaulting her without cause. Producers frantically tried to figure out how to salvage the reunion episode and handle the growing public relations nightmare. She also promised that she would press full charges and take the matter to court if necessary. Yandi, for her part, took to social media to post a tearful video defending Mendices and urging fans to understand the situation. "He was just trying to protect me," she sobbed, wiping away her tears. "But things got out of control. He's not a bad person. He's not a violent man." Her words sparked even more debate, with some fans supporting her and others opposing her, accusing her of allowing toxic behavior. As the evening went on, more information surfaced, revealing that the powder keg that exploded during the reunion was the result of months of tensions between Yandi and Rashida, fueled by behind-the-scenes drama that never made it onto the show. Jealousy, betrayals, and covert alliances all contributed to the powder keg, with cast members who had previously been friends now taking sides, and the entire Love and Hip Hop family appearing on the verge of disintegration. Mendices spent the night in jail, charged with assault and awaiting his trial. He had fought so hard to rebuild his life after previous legal troubles, and now it seemed like everything was at risk again. According to sources close to him, he was devastated by what had happened and deeply worried about the impact on his family and career. Outside the courthouse, Yandi was reportedly inconsolable, blaming herself for the entire situation and terrified about what the future held. The following morning, a small group of supporters gathered, holding signs and chanting slogans in support of Mendices as the media poured in. The atmosphere was tense as everyone waited for the next chapter in this unfolding drama. As the judge called Mendices' case, the courtroom fell silent, leaving fans worldwide holding their breath in anticipation of what would happen next. The cameras flashed as Yandi arrived, looking exhausted but determined. Rashida, too, arrived surrounded by her team, her expression hard and unreadable. The courtroom was packed with every seat occupied by reporters, fans, and worried family members who had come to witness. Rashida watched with a steely gaze, refusing to show even the slightest hint of fear or hesitation. As Mendices stood before the judge, his head slightly bowed, the weight of the situation was evident on his face. Yandi sat in the front row with her hands clasped tightly in her lap, tears threatening to spill at any moment. Across the aisle, the prosecutor wasted no time in painting a grim picture of the events at the reunion taping, characterizing Mendices' actions as aggressive and unprovoked. The prosecutor stressed the need to set an example, arguing that violence could not be tolerated, especially in high-profile public figures with influence over millions. Mendices' defense attorney, however, presented a different picture, insisting that Mendices had acted in a moment of emotional overwhelm, believing Yandi was in real danger. Rashida's team provided video footage from backstage angles showing the moment Mendices rushed forward and shoved her. The lawyer pleaded for leniency, asking the court to consider Mendices' character, his efforts to reform, and his devotion to his family. The judge listened intently, occasionally glancing at Mendices' furrowed brow, tension crackling in the air so thick it was hard to breathe. After several agonizing minutes, the judge finally spoke, announcing that Mendices would be released on bail but would face serious charges going forward. Collective gasp reverberated through the courtroom as Mendices' mother clutched her chest and muttered prayers to herself. Outside the courthouse, chaos broke out as reporters pushed microphones into the faces of anyone who wanted to speak. Rashida gave a brief speech to the crowd, adamantly declaring that she would not be intimidated and that she would see this case through to the end. "Nobody, no matter how famous they are, gets to put their hands on me without consequences," she said in an unwavering voice. Meanwhile, Yandi's social media erupted once more as fans dissected every aspect of the court proceedings, questioning whether Mendices had actually intended to harm Rashida or if he had simply lost control in a heated moment. Celebrities also started to weigh in, with some supporting Rashida and others firmly standing with Yandi and Mendices. The drama split the hip-hop community, with friendships breaking down under the strain of picking sides. Behind the scenes, Love and hip-hop producers faced a nightmare when the reunion episode was aired. What was supposed to be the season's high point was now tainted by real criminal charges. Rumors ran wild, and some claimed that the reunion had been a setup all along, designed to spark the kind of explosive drama that could drive ratings. Others speculated that producers had been too eager to let the drama spiral out of control for the sake of spectacle. One thing remained clear: no one would forget the Love and Hip Hop reunion of 2024. The night that Mendices made headlines, that Rashida stood strong, and that Yandi, though emotionally torn, remained by her husband's side, would be etched into reality TV history forever. Would this tragedy be the end for the Love and Hip Hop franchise? Or would it simply be the next chapter in a long legacy of drama and conflict? The impact, shock, and humiliation of being attacked in front of her peers and a national audience were evident. Her voice cracked as she described the aftermath, the sleepless nights, the anxiety, and the public scrutiny. Tears welled in her eyes, but they did not fall, demonstrating her resolve to not appear weak when it came to being attacked. When it came time for men to testify, the room held its breath. He spoke slowly and carefully, choosing his words with precision. He apologized directly to Rashida and the court, explaining that he had not seen Rashida's exact movements clearly and had, instead, taken her approach toward Yandi as a threat. He acknowledged that he should have handled the situation differently. When he spoke about his fear of being separated from his children once again, cross-examination was brutal. Rashida's lawyer questioned Menes about his previous legal issues, implying a pattern of impulsive, violent behavior. Menes struggled to remain composed under the barrage of accusations, his hands clenching and unclenching on the witness stand. Outside the courtroom, the media frenzy reached new heights, with every detail of the trial being dissected and debated across social media platforms, news outlets, and entertainment blogs. For days, fan theories flourished, with some claiming there was a conspiracy against Menes, and others arguing Rashida was being unfairly vilified for speaking up for herself. In the midst of the chaos, private talks discreetly started behind closed doors. According to sources close to the case, both legal teams were considering a plea deal to avoid the uncertainty of a jury verdict. However, pride and principle complicated matters. Rashida was reportedly unwilling to settle unless Menes publicly admitted wrongdoing and accepted significant penalties. While Menes was hesitant to enter a guilty plea for a violent crime, he insisted he had not intended to commit. As the trial proceeded, leaked footage from a different angle, showing the moments leading up to the altercation in greater detail, surfaced online. Though it was unclear whether Rashida had actually moved aggressively toward Yandi, the footage reignited debate online and created a stir in the courtroom when it was used as evidence. The jury watched the video closely, their faces inscrutable, and legal experts conjectured endlessly about how the new footage might affect the verdict, some arguing it supported their case. Closing arguments were intense and passionate, with both sides appealing to the jury's sense of justice and humanity. Rashida's lawyer asked them to consider the full context of the case and the devastating impact a harsh sentence would have on an already fractured family. Menes's claim that he was protecting Yandi was contested by others, who insisted that physical violence was never an acceptable response, no matter the provocation. As the trial came to an end, emotions ran high. Every hour felt like a lifetime. As the jury deliberated and every time the courtroom doors creaked open, every heart inside jumped with anticipation, only to crash back into anxious waiting when no verdict was announced. Outside, supporters on both sides held vigils, chanting, praying, and hoping for the outcome they believed was right. Inside the private confines of their homes, Yandi and Menes clung to each other, alternating between hope and despair. Rashida tried to keep her cool, concentrating on her kids and her business endeavors, but the stress was overwhelming. Her life had already been irrevocably altered. When the jury returned, the courtroom was electric, with people crammed into every available space in a desperate attempt to hear the verdict that would determine so much. The judge called everyone to order, and the four persons stood holding the envelope containing the verdict. Time seemed to drag on forever as the agonizing minutes passed, with Menes closing his eyes and praying silently for a brief moment. Rashida looked straight ahead, refusing to show any emotion, and Yandi squeezed Menes's hand until her knuckles turned white. The room went silent as the foreperson cleared their throat and started reading the verdict. Every breath was held. Every heart thumped with anticipation. Maness stood still, his face unreadable, waiting for the words that would change everything. The jury had found him guilty of misdemeanor assault, but not felony assault. The room erupted in a frenzied mix of gasps, cries, and whispers. Yandi tightly gripped Maness's hands as tears streamed down her face, a mixture of relief and disbelief. The judge swiftly restored order, his gavel slamming down with force. But the guilty verdict was enough to start a firestorm across the media and within the love triangle. Rashida fought verbally with both sides, each convinced of the righteousness of their cause. Maness addressed the media briefly, his voice heavy with emotion. He expressed remorse once again, emphasizing that his actions were never intended to be violent. Production on Love and Hip Hop came to a screeching halt as the fallout from the trial began to seep into every aspect of their lives. Rashida also made a statement, her voice strong but trembling, about the importance of standing up for oneself and that she hoped to find a way to make amends. Yandi stood by him, fierce and protective, declaring that they would get through this as a family. Insiders stated that Maness would be permanently barred from filming, while others suggested that the controversy might actually increase viewership. Rashida's future on the show was also uncertain, but some producers worried that her presence would be too divisive, rekindling tensions that could no longer be contained. Behind closed doors, discussions became even more heated, with some cast members taking sides, further dividing the group. Alliances and friendships dissolved quickly, and new rivalries emerged. Yandi found herself cut off from old friends who thought Maness had crossed an unforgivable line. Though it didn't justify the violence, it shed new light on the toxic environment that had fueled the confrontation. In the midst of the chaos, a surprising twist emerged. Private messages between Rashida and a senior producer leaked online, suggesting that certain scenes leading up to the reunion had been staged to provoke drama. Fans were split once more, with some demanding justice for Maness and others doubling down on their support for Rashida as she was sentenced. Maness faced the prospect of community service, probation, or jail time. As the day drew near, his attorneys fought valiantly for leniency, pointing to his charitable endeavors and attempts to be a positive influence in his community. Letters of support poured in from fans, family members, and even some former critics who felt he deserved a second chance. At the same time, advocacy groups pushed for a harsher sentence, arguing that celebrities shouldn't be given a free pass for violent behavior. Maness and Yandi struggled to maintain a sense of normalcy for their children, protecting them from the worst of the media coverage, but the tension was unavoidable. Nights were filled with whispered conversations, tears, and prayers. Yandi frequently stayed up late reading through endless articles and social media posts, her mind racing with fear and worry. Maness tried to remain strong, but the guilt and uncertainty were constant.